Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Kathryn White, keeper of dragons and lover of coffee. Kathryn is native to Oklahoma, eldest of 6 kids, and was raised on a farm. A master storyteller, Kathryn started writing her first novel, a fantasy, at the age of 10 and completed it at 600 pages by the time she graduated high school. After much blood and tears, she finally published that book in 2014. Now married, Kathryn enjoys traveling with her husband, dog, and toddler, and works from home as a writing coach, helping others become master storytellers. Welcome, Kathryn. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Sabrina.
Of course, 600 pages. That is a feat.
I did not have anything to do, any responsibilities during high school, so I just wrote like a mad woman.
Wow. Tell us the premise of the book. Is there dragons in it?
Of course there are. I can barely write a story without dragons in it. So the premise of the book is overall a sort of coming of age, though the character in the story, when you first meet him, he's 12. Later on, he's in his 20s, but he's gone through a lot of trauma. And the premise of the story is him working through some of that trauma and moving past some of the, I don't know what you want to call it, but growing up mentally. And it also deals with a lot of racism. I based him on Native American people, First Nations. And so he has to deal with that and his struggle on thinking that everybody sees him differently. And then also just dragons too, just dragons. So there's not a lot of dragons in it, but the one dragon that's in there, everybody loves.
So insightful to be writing like such in-depth thought processes starting at age 10.
Yeah. I watched my mom work through a lot of her childhood trauma, and I was an avid reader. So any book that I could get my hands on, I read. And I had already read a lot of books in regards to like boundaries, mental health, and anything by Dr. Henry Cloud, Dr. Caroline Leaf. I read a lot of those and just learned at a pretty young age that whatever trauma you go through as a child, it's going to hold you back in some ways until you resolve it, deal with it, face it head on as an adult. And it's one of the unfortunate things that whenever you're a kid and you're going through that stuff, there's nobody that comes to rescue you but your adult self later.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. So insightful.
So yep, and at the time I just was writing the story. I just had it in me and I just wanted this kid and a dragon. But then once I had finished it, I realized all of this potential through the editing process. And that's where the story really always, for me, gets really fun, is whenever you're in that dreaded editing phase.
Yeah.
And that's whenever you can really make the theme of it come to life.
Fantastic. Well, that is so cool. 600 pages. I just can't even imagine that. It must just feel so awesome just holding that book.
Yes. Yes. It is awesome. And I don't have a copy right here with me. Otherwise, I would hold it up. But yeah, seeing your name in print for the first time has like this cloud nine feeling. And then having people like leaving reviews and even coming up to you and saying, "Oh my gosh, I loved your book." It's like,
what's the title of the book?
The title of the book is The Dragon's Son. The series title is Tales of the Wovelin. That's a mouthful. But the name of the book is The Dragon's Son. And then it has a sequel to it, The Dragon's Due.
D-U-W.
No, D-U-E.
I mean, D-U-E, sorry. Yeah, that's right. I didn't know if it meant like dragons do, like all the things that dragons do, or if it was.
Yeah, no, more like the due that they owe.
Yes. That's so fun. Well, I love that you're here. I love that you are open to hanging out and sharing some of your journey and some of the stuff that you do now in your world in order to help others, embrace their own story through storytelling. I just think it's brilliant. So I'm excited kind of to jump in. But the first question that I want to ask you to kind of just get this rolling is, when you think about your life, from you starting to where you are now, what would you say has been the greatest or the biggest challenge that you have had in your life? Like what changed it, what pivoted it, and then what did you learn from that story?
Oh my goodness. There's been so many nodes in my life to date that really made me look at things and have to change and pivot. I'd say one of my first that I can remember very clearly, and that just started me on the path of taking ownership of my life. It was, I want to say I was maybe 20. I can't remember exactly how old I was. But I had just come from the city from seeing a hearing specialist and finding out that I was going deaf. And I had this former friend try to, right after I got home, call me up and try to drag up a bunch of drama that had been going on for about 2 years. And she just, every year around the same time, she wanted to drag it back up. And I had always been like trying to sit there with her and apologize and make everybody happy. And it never worked. And at that moment, and a lot of times my mother would also just step in and kind of take care of the drama. And so, but after coming back from this hearing specialist and having that kind of earth-shaking news, my mom's a basket case, and I am just done. I'm done. I'm reeling. I have too much on my mind, and I was done. And I just remember looking at her and just having this epiphany and asking her really calmly, what do you want me to do? What can I do to resolve this completely? And she's like, well, I don't know, but you've got to do something. And I'm like, okay, if you can't give me any help, I have literally taken ownership of my actions in this problem. I have done what I can to resolve it, and yet for 2 years, it keeps coming back up. I don't think this is my problem anymore. So from now on, this does not get brought up again in my presence. If you want to talk about something else or do other things, that's fine. But if you bring this up, I am going to have to hang up, walk away, close the chat, whatever. And it shocked her. It kind of shocked me too. But that was the moment when I learned how to start fighting my own fights, and without fighting necessarily, and how to set boundaries and then take ownership of my life and quit letting my mother do it for me. And definitely that was a big pivotal moment for me to stop people pleasing. I call myself a recovering people pleaser.
Yes.
And it's a daily struggle.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you're talking about people pleasing, because I think that that's something that so many of us have an issue with. When in your world, you know, obviously it's a constant thing, right? It's like a constant reminder. But, you know, minus that situation being the pivoting moment in you recognizing all of this stuff, how long from then till now has it kind of taken where you're pretty certain in your boundaries or your people pleasing endeavors?
Wow. Eesh. It's I am so much better than I was whenever I was 20. So
Yeah.
I would say, 10 years. But it's a daily thing. Most of the time it got within probably, I want to say 4 years, where I started knowing my personal boundaries really, really well, and learning how to set those in a way that it's not me trying to control somebody else. That's what a lot of people get so mixed up whenever they're first starting to set boundaries. It's not about controlling somebody else. It's about controlling you and your environment as much as possible. And just learning to say no and being okay with it, and not just bending over backwards for people. I had to learn how to set boundaries for myself. And I want to say that took 4, maybe 5 years for me to get really comfortable with. And then, of course, that's always when life likes to throw you a curveball and is like, okay, so you've got this handled. Now I'm going to throw something else at you. And like marriage with bonus kids. So how do you set boundaries with all of that? And so then you've got a whole, pivot again moment where you're having to relearn with yourself. Okay, I know my boundaries in all of these situations over here, but now I've got to relearn new boundaries over here. And I've got to learn that it's not my job to please people, and figure out what is my job description. And so it's, again, since I've gotten married, it's taken me about another 3 to 4 years to really start finding that balance again with new boundaries and new people, and well, not just new people, but new family, because it's completely different if you're in the workforce. And I did a lot of dealing with insurance in the healthcare world. And that's where you can meet a lot of interesting people. And I learned how to set boundaries there, and how to be able to diffuse situations and help people find solutions and stuff without getting too angry. But it's totally different with family, because you have to live with family. You want them to like you most of the time. And so then that was a whole new thing. So it is still a learning process for me. And it takes me personally a couple of years to really start finding a balance and remind myself that, hey, I'm feeling anxious and angry, and frustrated because I'm focusing too much on how can I make them happy instead of, okay, what do I need for my peace right now?
Exactly. Yeah. One of the, I think, things that I come across the most is people recognizing that setting boundaries is so important, but um, not really knowing the first step on how to do that. Do you remember from your own personal experience, maybe what were like the first couple of things that you did as you were stepping into learning how to set boundaries, learning to say no, um, learning to not people please as much? Is there anything that you can give us that you remember, or maybe that you use now?
Yeah. So my very first step, I would say, was stopping being so dependent on my parents, for one. Just as a young person, I was very dependent on my parents, and they helped me with everything. And not necessarily like an enmeshed, codependent relationship. It was just they were ready to take over and help me out with things. And just recognizing that, okay, yes, I would like to talk to my mom about this and get her opinion, but then it's my job to take care of it. That was my earliest, very first step on that, just recognizing that, hey, this is my responsibility, not my parents. So why am I coming up and like expecting them to do it, basically? The next step generally is just watching myself. When I start getting frustrated or I start dealing with a lot of anxiety, that is my body cluing me into there is a boundary being crossed somewhere. And that's whenever I have to stop and really start digging and figuring out, okay, why am I anxious? Well, is it because one of my kids was really unhappy with this consequence to their actions? And, okay, what can I do about that? Am I trying to make them happy? Okay, it's not my job to make them happy. It's my job to help raise them to be a good human being. And it's okay for them to be unhappy occasionally. And then just learning to set that boundary with myself of and just recognizing whenever I'm going the extra mile in my brain and trying to mother hen everything. I'm trying to think of a good way to kind of break that down into a step. It really takes just you getting honest with yourself and learning who you are. And I find a lot of people who struggle with boundaries have not taken that time to really get to know themselves and therefore understand what their personal boundaries are. A lot of times your boundaries are, I almost want to say, kind of innate. And but we tend to put our needs in the back corner and disassociate from them and to take care of everybody else. So learning to sit down with yourself, and I recommend journaling. And a lot of people think that's just like a girl thing to do, but I recommend it for everybody. Just keep a journal, start writing your thoughts in it, how your day went, a couple things you're grateful for. And that's going to help you start cracking who you really are and start recognizing, okay, I keep talking about in my entries this thing that bugs me. And now I need to explore, why this bugs me and what is going on here. So that's generally my first step whenever I start noticing an imbalance in myself, is to sit down and write it. Of course, I'm a writer, and that's how I work. But I found that even helps my kids and my husband, is just to sit down and write it out. And then things just it helps you get some distance from it and clears things up for you a lot.
Exactly. 100. I love what Christine said here. Can you read that?
Yes. Know thyself equals more confidence and not caring what others think. Yes. Yes. When you know yourself, you're happier with yourself and you care less about what other people think about me.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to what you were saying as far as, people who are having people pleasing tendencies, aren't familiar with what they want. They're not familiar with who they authentically are. So totally goes hand in hand. Once you really come to realize and love who you are as a person. It's so interesting too for myself when I think about this, because I remember knowing that, like, I remember a large amount of my time here on earth has been like, love yourself, but it being just kind of like, yay, love yourself. And then there was this pivot of, oh my God, it's not just like love yourself, it's actually loving yourself, like for
Yeah.
real. I
Yeah.
never really recognized that it was like an actual real thing that like you could really feel and really do for yourself. I don't know when that hit. I would probably say maybe 5 or 6 years now, maybe a little bit more, where I actually like fell in love with myself to the point of stepping into, or stepping, not like stepping into, but stepping up, where like all the negativity didn't matter.
Right. Right. Yeah. People get this image of, love yourself as like bath bombs and love
Yeah.
yourself at any size, whether I really like it or not. And it's like, that's a very minute
Yeah.
part of it that doesn't have to be included. Loving yourself means like, just like you would with your child, if they have a splinter in their foot, you don't say, well, I guess it's a part of you now, so just love yourself. You help them learn how to take that out and how to deal with the pain. And then you're there to hold them as they cry. And it's the same for you. It's learning to know who you are as an individual, learning what your needs are, how to meet those needs, and just stepping up for yourself and showing up for yourself every day.
Yeah. And I really do think that personal development, reading the books, doing the work, journaling or writing, as you were saying, excuse me, does have so much to do with it.
Yes. Yes,
You know?
I think so. I mean, there's no end of quotes that I could, quote about how good reading is for you as an individual, what it does for your brain, for your heart, your soul, your mind. And reading just opens up your mind to a lot of things, to understanding, to learning, to absorbing. And it's where also you can privately have that discussion with yourself of, whenever you're reading something that made me uncomfortable. Okay, stop. Why did that make me uncomfortable? Well, I don't know. And then, and going through, you can have that private dialogue with yourself and nobody's judging you. You're reading a book.
Yeah.
And then the writing is just where you're taking all of that and putting it down here where you can get a little bit of space and look at the lay of the land, essentially.
Yeah.
And all of it works together to help your brain and your body just connect with each other and learn who you are as a human being.
Yeah. I think a lot of what you're saying leads back to the word curiosity.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Learning to be curious about what you're feeling and what you're thinking, instead of, oh my gosh, no, put up borders. I can't handle that. And just being okay with, oh, I'm feeling this. Why am I feeling this? and talking with yourself about that instead of getting immediately defensive and trying to disconnect from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do that so much when I feel things came. That actually just happened to me a couple days ago, where as I was going to sleep, I just felt this rush of anxiety, just like I'm like in the dark, ready to go to bed, and I feel like my heart's going like 100 miles an hour. I can't freaking breathe. My mind is racing. And instead of getting all up in my head and just being like, whatever, let me just turn on Netflix, or let me get on my phone, or let me just, just like push it away and not paying attention to it. I sat in the dark and I literally was like, why do I feel this way? Like, what is going on? And like allowing myself to kind of like break that open and then like peer inside to figure out where all of that, because it was so weird. Like nothing was happening. Nothing was going on. Nothing was being said. We're like sleeping, no arguments, no nothing. And then, so it's confusing, but being able to break it open and look in and be like, oh, wow. Oh, okay. And then actually I did exactly what you said, where I actually went into the bathroom. I have a notebook or a planner that I keep next to my bedside, went into the bathroom. So we have a ledge in our shower. I sat in the ledge in the shower and I just wrote out. There was just like a bunch of stuff in my head, just like a bunch of ideas that just like rushed up that looked like anxiety and or that felt like anxiety, and just got it all down on paper, and then I slept like a baby.
Yeah, exactly. You were able to get that distance from it and disconnect from it in a healthy way and help your brain process everything. I've seen so many people, and I've been guilty of it definitely as a teenager, where they want to disconnect from that, but how they do it is, or how we do it just as human beings in general is, well, I don't want to think about that. And so I'll scroll Instagram, or I'll get on Facebook, or I'll watch a video, and so that I'm not having to deal with it. And then they'll do that in their relationship with themselves. I mean, that's essentially what you're doing whenever you're ignoring those feelings and those thoughts that are coming in. You're pushing yourself away. And then that translates into your outside relationships with friends and family. And you start sabotaging all of your relationships if it goes unchecked. And you start pushing people away and getting into fights for no reason and stuff, because you're not connecting with you and learning to how to have that relationship first.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think is the number one lesson that you've learned about life?
Number one lesson. That's a big one. Probably, and this is going to sound weird to put it this way, but life's not fair. And a lot of people kind of give that out flippantly. Well, sorry, kid, life's not fair. But it does come down to life isn't fair. It doesn't have to be fair. And quite honestly, if it was fair, we wouldn't learn how to be decent people. So, life not being fair, it's real. And the life around us has the best boundaries of any of us. And there is going to be consequences to actions, and always. So if you don't learn to deal with your inner demons and learn how to just deal with everything that you're struggling with, connect with yourself again, like we've been talking about, a life is going to constantly come and kick you in the pants. And there's some people that get around it, and other people in their life suffer the consequences of their actions. And we see that a lot, and we shake our heads and we're like, that's so unfair. But that's kind of the thing in life. Life doesn't have to be fair, and it's okay for it to not be fair, because we wouldn't learn how to empathize with somebody who's going through a rough patch if life had been fair to us. Yeah. And we wouldn't learn the consequences to actions either from our own or other people's that we watch, and if life were fair. So that's probably the number one thing I have learned in life, is that life isn't fair. It doesn't have to be. And it's a good thing that it's not.
Yeah, that's a good one. I love that. I've never heard that one before. And I totally agree with that. It 100% makes sense. And it's a good thing to understand and to be like okay with, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Soon as you're okay with it, and it seems like kind of a cynical attitude to have whenever you're not used to it. But as soon as you become okay with that and realize that life isn't going to be fair, it's going to be just most of the time. And people will get their comeuppance, and you too, if you don't watch it. And then, good people will have good things happen to them eventually. Bad people will have the bad things happen to them eventually. Everything will catch up with everyone eventually. And even in the moments when we can't see, well, this is a good person, why did they have all of this stuff happen to them? It helps to just remember that life's not fair, and that's okay. And that person is a good person, but maybe they are needing to learn something from this. And it's giving me an opportunity to ask, how can I step up and help?
Yeah, definitely. Throughout this process of, learning more about yourself and falling in love with yourself and learning to, share your story through writing or through characters, was there any belief systems that you've had to break through to get to where you are now mentally? Can you share one with us?
Yeah. Well, a big one, that I had to fight with for a while was, that question of why is life not fair? I had to deal with that a lot. Another one, though, that keeps coming up for me, depending on what's going on, and it's probably something I will struggle with my entire life, is imposter syndrome, of just the little inner critic constantly. Well, you're not certified for that. What classes did you go for that? How are you a master in that? And really, should you be trying to teach anybody this or tell them about this? Or why are you even writing a book? I mean, you've never done anything, gone to any classes professionally or anything like that. And that's the one that I struggle with the most. And the best way to beat it for me has been just to push forward and do just action. Action kills imposter syndrome so fast for me. And whenever I start feeling that rising up in me and that anxiety of, you're not an expert in this. Why are you trying to help this person, write their book and turn it into the bestseller it can be? That's dumb. You have no training in this. You're an imposter. And it's just, whenever I start feeling that, it's immediately like, go message that person and, hey, when can we set our next appointment to talk about this?
I love it.
Or sit down and start writing something of my own and going, you know what? I am an expert because I do this.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's probably my constant demon that I struggle with. And it always tries to make me stop and go sit on the couch and scroll on my phone and not take action.
Yeah.
And the fastest way to slay it is to take action.
Yeah. Slay that dragon.
Slay that dragon, exactly.
Yes. What would be some advice you'd give to females who are struggling with imposter syndrome? What should they do? Take
Absolutely.
action.
Yes, take action.
Yes.
Take action.
Anything else? Give us
Exactly.
one more. Give us one more.
Yes.
What else?
So, oh my goodness, trying to think here. Taking action solves so many other problems too. And it's just whenever you're really sitting there struggling with that, and if I let it sit there too long, I'll start getting like heavy in my shoulders, and I'll start kind of getting that depressed feeling of what am I doing and why am I even trying? And especially when things don't go well, I didn't make as much money as I wanted to this month. How am I going to pay the bills? And my inner person starts getting all dramatic and everything, and whoa, it's us. And that's where I have to stop. And I'm like, okay, should I look at a calendar? Because sometimes if I go look at a calendar, it just makes me more anxious. So other times it doesn't. Okay, go look at a calendar. What can I fit in this month? What can I do? And if I can't look at the calendar for right now, then it's like, okay, go to the computer, sit down, spend 5 minutes writing something, work on one of your books, edit something. And then once I've had that mental purge, then I ask myself, okay, what appointments can I set? What can I do to take action on this right now? And sometimes it's even something as simple as just putting out a social media post of, hey, I have some coaching openings for a limited time. They are this price, and here's what you can do. And that's kind of my big thing. And then there are just some days where it's like I have to go clean the house. Not gonna lie, just go clean the house and feel better about this accomplishment. This is something that you can check off of your list for today. Yeah. And a lot of times if I clean that house, it's just a whole mental purge there too. Yeah. So if my environment is clean, my head is clean.
Yeah, I'm a huge component of that as far as staying organized with your environment and with your time. I think that is one of the biggest issues with humans in general, is there's just so many things pulling at our attention all the time. I mean, just take away the obvious things, which is like your children and your husband. And there's just so much. I mean, there's so many things consistently trying to shift your attention to so many different things. It can be so overwhelming. And then you add the house and the messiness and the clutter. So having a nice, clean, organized space helps so much.
And it can be a lot to keep up with as a entrepreneur. But one of the things that has helped me is just I've got timers and I have a schedule, and I am a very ADD person. So if I don't keep those, things just become a disaster. But it's setting like 1 hour timer for work, and then 5 minutes writing or 10 minutes writing, depending on what I've got going on. And then 1 hour house cleaning, pick one room and go clean that room, something like that. And just kind of breaking up my days like that. That way I'm not just stuck sitting at a screen all day or on phone calls all day. And there is something in my environment that is getting clean. My 2-year-old, I schedule in like little 5 to 10 minute play sessions with her through the day. That's getting me up out of my chair on the floor, doing some exercises and stretches with her as we're playing, and that's meeting her needs too. So just breaking up that 12 hours you've got awake or whatever, and helps so much.
Could totally see that. Frances has some really cool little nuggets there. You want to read that?
We are all experts of our experience. No one walks in our shoes. We learn from our own experience. what we learn from our own experience is unique, and sharing that can and will make a difference for someone else. That's very true. Yes.
Which is what we're doing right now. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely 100%. And what's so cool about it too is the same exact person could be sharing the same advice or thought process. But because of the story that's linked to it, people will hear it differently,
Right.
each time. And, a lot of times I get that all the time because I work with a lot of, entrepreneurs or coaches are like, there's so many people that are already doing what I'm doing. And it's like, yeah, but they don't have the same exact story that you have. So,
Right.
or, the way that you speak or the way that you come off or your personality. So yeah, it's so important for each one of us to really step into our own story and master that. I want to take a moment to acknowledge those watching live. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us. We so appreciate you. For those of you watching on the replay, if you could hashtag a replay so that we know where you are watching us at and we can send you some love. If you are watching this live, we have a question here. If you are watching this live, if you could share it wherever you are, that really helps us expand our reach and expand, who's listening. I'm going to put this up if you want to read this out loud.
All right. Have you ever put a bunch of work into a project only to realize you've made it worse and need to go back to an older version? Yes. What I've found definitely in writing projects is when I have done that, I have lost what I like to call I've lost the magic. I have gone in there with purpose, with an agenda, and I'm going to tell this story with this theme, and I lose the magic of just doing it. I don't know exactly what project you would be talking about, but I know in writing projects, there have been times I have gotten 60 pages of something done, and I'll go back and read it, and I'm like, I don't like any of it. It's worse than the old draft was. What have I done? And I've had authors come to me with that. They're like, I hate it and I don't know what's wrong. The writing is better, the grammar is better, the editing, it's better, but I hate it now and I can't keep going forward. And a lot of times it's just you stopped doing and you started going at it with an agenda of I'm going to teach somebody a lesson. A lot of times it's how we go at it, and what we need to step back and do is just tell the story.
Yeah, definitely. So speaking on that, I would love for you to talk more about what you actually do for all of the humans, your business, where people can find you. So this was a nice little segue. Thank you, Nigel. Tell us all the things.
So you can find me at www.kathrynjfogelman.com. And Fogelman is Fogleman. That was my maiden name and now my pen name. And that's where you can find all of my books and my coaching services as a writing coach. That's also where you can find all of my social media links, where I'm at. I'm pretty much almost everywhere. You're welcome, Nigel. I'm glad I could answer that. So my website is probably the best place to just find all of that. I spend way too much time on Twitter and Facebook. And you can find great writing tips on my blog. The best place if you are wanting to improve your writing and needing any help with your stories or even just writing good blog posts and stuff is to subscribe to my newsletter. And that goes out about a couple of times a month. That also keeps you in the loop for all of my blog posts, what is going on in my life, what podcasts I'm going to be on, and all of that good stuff. So you can find that on my website, kathrynjfopelman.com, under Connect. And that's where all of the goodies are. As far as a writing coach, I very much believe in providing readers with quality books. Specifically, I'm very passionate about providing quality Christian books, quality clean books. Whether you're a Christian or not, there's probably been some Christian stories you've picked up and you've read and you're like, cringe, that could have been done better. And it absolutely can be done better. And so I'm very passionate about that. But any story in general, whether it's clean or even steamy, I am very passionate about helping you make it the best seller it can be. Cleaning it up, having those characters relatable and three-dimensional, and that plot flowing smoothly to where the reader is learning lessons in it, but they don't realize it. And they walk away saying, wow, that was a great book. I have to share this with my friends. So I've helped authors with even just getting their story ideas onto paper, outlining them, to finishing their book, getting it edited and published. So I've helped with everything from both ends of the scale on that. And I just love doing anything writing, story, book related. I love it. So,
what are your big dreams for your business?
My big dreams for my business, I think, would be to get to a point where I have editors staffed and people who can help authors like do the publishing process for the authors automatically, and just have a whole staff available to where it's not just me doing it all, but there's a whole team of people that can help do all of the parts with excellence in the book. So I can focus on more of the coaching, and there can be a whole team of people, a really good editor, a really good publisher, and a really good marketer. That's the dream for my business eventually, is to have that awesome team.
Yes, absolutely. Very, very cool. Love where that is heading. Why do you do what you do?
I do it because, as I said earlier, I'm passionate about getting good quality stories out there. I love reading. I love writing. I love reading what other people have written. And I see potential in everybody to tell an excellent story. And a lot of people just don't know how to bring that out and to tell it in a really good way. I've met a lot of people that they have a fantastic story, but it's just very poorly written, and nobody wants to hear it, listen to it, or read it. And that's tragic. So I love to help those people craft their story to where they can get it out there and other people can hear it. That's why I do it.
Fiction or nonfiction? What do you work with predominantly, or only, or does it have to have dragons in it?
It does not have to have dragons. That is a bonus, though. I love dragons. But I predominantly work with fiction. I have been helping with some nonfiction as of late, and especially as I'm getting into trying to write my own nonfiction, it's really hard because there's no dragons. So, but I predominantly work with fiction. I've never turned anybody away to date yet, though. So there's always a first. But I just love stories so much. I really haven't turned anyone away yet.
I feel like you could turn a self-help personal development book into a Slay Your Dragon book.
I could. I hadn't thought of that, but that's a good idea.
You really should. It would be so on brand for you. And people love dragons. Like, I don't do fantasy anything. Like, I have never even watched like what is it, like Harry Potter type.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fantasy movies.
None of it. But even me, like, you talk about dragons, like, that's cool. Like, I'm intrigued by it. To sit down and watch something, not so much. But there are, I think, people out there that need personal development, but are more in a mindset of it being a waste of time because they want to be only reading about dragons.
Right.
So you would be like capturing that whole audience that would never pick up a self-help book.
That's true. That's true. Dragons have had a way of capturing imaginations for centuries. And that would be a good way to get some people who look at like boundary books and go, ew, it's nonfiction, and get them to look at it a little differently.
Yeah, you could have, like, Francis here says inner demons, but you could put like the boundaries or the little like people pleasing, all those little inner thoughts could be like little hobbits or something.
Yes.
Like little like trolls. So I don't know, something to think about. Look, you got some people here that are on board with that. So
they're like, yeah, let's do it. I wanted this yesterday.
Yeah, so that might be a little twist for you to kind of get it in there. So anyways, I so appreciate you coming on. This has been absolutely fantastic. I so love the work that you do, your story. Thank you for taking the time. For those of you that resonated with Kathryn and all the goodness that she shared, make sure to follow her on social media. She said Facebook and Twitter. Where are you at the most?
Yeah.
Facebook and Twitter.
I'm kind of everywhere.
Her website is right above her head area. So if you want to check out her website, it's also in this description below. Make sure you click. Is there newsletters or somewhere where they can follow you? And
Yep. Cool. So if you go to my website and then there's on the bar, it says connect, or if you're on your phone, it'll be the little bars and you click those and it'll say connect. And there will actually, I think, even be a little dragon that will help point you toward where you can subscribe for my newsletter. So if he's working correctly.
Fantastic. Well, I love it. Here at Her Nation, we're all about connecting people to the right people in order to help us all rise. So I so appreciate you taking some time out of your day to hang out with me and chat.
Well, thank you so much. This has been an honor.
Any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Only thing I would say is just if that imposter syndrome comes in, just slay it with action. That's a number one thing for everybody. Just do something.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version, Kathryn. All of you watching live, thank you so much. Those of you watching on the replay, like I said, make sure you're hashtagging replay so that we know where you are watching us at. We can send you some love. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. If you have an amazing story to share, I've struggled to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here at hernation.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. As always, do something awesome today. Much love.